I'm Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And we're the co-creators of the hit podcast, The Most Haunted City on Earth.
Look, we love ghosts, but we also love true crime. So we here at Haunted City Studios decided to create From One to Wicked.
A true crime podcast with a killer twist. We'll investigate,
discuss,
then rate
the most brutal and devious crimes and the monsters who commit them.
On a scale from 1 to wicked. So sit back and kill some time with us.
And remember, next time you're walking down the street,
you might just be passing a perfect wicked 10. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of From One to Wicked. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm George.
George? Why George?
Because we're Tex, and we're doing Tex today.
Yeah.
And I'm George for Georgia.
Oh, I see what you're going for.
Oh, yeah.
That was a weak one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a little weak. I mean, it just came to me. So
Yeah,
I say
guess.
things that come to me.
I guess so.
I'm an improvisational king.
Are you?
I sure am.
Okay.
I think everybody would agree.
Okay.
No one agrees.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We are going to be continuing on with our series that we're doing with letters that we have from serial killers and or killers. Because technically the person we're covering today is not a serial killer because there wasn't a cooling period.
Yeah, there wasn't that cooling period.
So he doesn't count. But he should, in our minds, count.
He's a mass killer, technically, right?
Technically. So today we're going to be covering Tex Watson.
Manson, the leader of a drug and murder cult, ordered the brutal slayings of actress Sharon Tate and the others in her Los Angeles home. One of Manson's executioners at the time included Charles Tex Watson.
After about 2 weeks of taking these drugs and becoming just void of conscience, Manson said, hey, I want you to go out and kill these people, to go up to this place and kill everyone that is there. And he gave us the orders, the directions, even though we knew where we were going. He gave us all the directions of what to do after we got there and what not to do, and told the girls to write something witchy on the walls. And here I was, a naive Texas boy, without a conscience of really right and wrong, thinking that the world was going to come to the end tomorrow. And going on this journey over to this house to kill whoever was in the house, not knowing how many people were there, who they were, what they looked like, whether they were men, women, didn't know anything about this. Going to this house very reluctantly. My conscience hadn't completely dwindled down to nothing at that time. But it was very close to it because I didn't have enough to say, hey, I'm not going to do this.
So you might not recognize that name exactly, but you definitely know the group that Tex Watson was a part of, which was the Manson family.
Who?
I know. Most people, when they are talking about the Manson family, they focus on Charles Manson, or Charlie, as everybody likes to call him. But honestly, Tex is a main character in the story of the Manson family.
Absolutely.
And so we actually have a postcard of Hollywood that was sent to whoever wrote to Tex Watson, and now we have it, so we're going to read this at the end, so make sure you stick around for that.
Oh, yeah.
And don't worry, y'all, he has better handwriting than the last few.
Then BTK.
BTK and...
Alfred Gaynor wasn't that bad.
It wasn't terrible.
It wasn't terrible. No, this guy has a lot better handwriting.
Yeah. BTK was
so-
illegible.
Charles Denton Tex Watson.
Yes.
Are they call him Tex because of Denton? Because there's a Denton, Texas?
No, it's because he's from Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
All right.
But yeah, if you are new here, we are going to do this a little bit differently. So we're still going to go through the story and what Tex did, but we are going to be rating Tex Watson on a scale of from 1 to wicked based off of 5 different categories, which include brutality, premeditation, motive, difficulty of investigation, and body count.
Yep.
And so I'm excited to read this one. I personally am very fascinated by the Manson family. And we just watched a documentary
She is.
recently that had a very hot take about the Manson family, but a really interesting theory.
Yeah.
And if y'all are interested in hearing more about that, we can do a whole episode on the theory of the government possibly creating the Manson family and all of that. And they had some solid points, in my opinion.
Had some points. I wasn't convinced by the end, but they had some points.
I thought it was interesting.
I thought it was a fun thing.
Well, it was on, what was that, Netflix?
Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to watch it, go watch it on Netflix. It's literally the only thing that I think comes up about Charles Manson when you look up Charles Manson on Netflix. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and dive on into...
Let's jump into it.
Tex Watson.
Tex.
So here's a photo of Tex, and this was an undated mugshot. Obviously, it's pretty recent because he's older in this photo, but I don't know if this is the most recent photo of him. But nonetheless, this kind of gives us an idea.
The photo that I know of him is he looks like super eager and excited.
Well, that photo we'll talk about.
Because he was brainwashed.
Are you talking about this photo?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
He looks like he's like, seeing...
He looks like he's on crack.
Yeah. Because I think it wasn't crack,
LSD.
but it was something. Yeah.
They were on LSD, most of them.
Okay.
But yeah, so Tex Watson's full name is Charles Denton Tex Watson. Tex is just a nickname, so it's technically just Charles Denton Watson, but that's not as cool.
Yeah.
So, and what is the Manson family without cool names, I guess? But he was born on December 2nd, 1945, so what would that make him, a Sagittarius?
I have no clue.
I'm pretty sure that's a Sagittarius.
Okay.
If not, yeah, I think that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which is interesting because I feel like there are a lot of Sagittarii killers in the list.
There are.
But he is an American murderer, not serial killer. He's classified as an American murderer who played a central role in the infamous Manson family led by Charles Manson. So let's start out with life before the murders.
Also, just real quick before we get started, I would like to say that if you hear anything weird in this episode, it is because they are Chris and Megan are building a paranormal museum right behind us.
Yeah, exactly. So if you hopefully don't hear anything because we have a lot of compression on these mics, but if for some reason you do, just know it's not ghosts.
It's not ghosts.
It's a paranormal museum. But yeah, so this is Tex Watson. This was taken while he was a part of the Manson family, not before.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I feel like it gives a good idea of his personality.
Oh, sure.
And it's the famous photo of him, truly. But Watson was born in Dallas, Texas on December 2nd, 1945. He grew up, though, in a nearby town of Copeville, about an hour northeast of Dallas.
Okay.
So he was the youngest of 3 children, and Watson's upbringing was marked by religious involvement, academic excellence, and athletic achievements.
Chuck, I grew up in a real small town, Copeville, Texas. That's about 35 miles north of Dallas. It was a typical childhood. I had a good family, no problem with that. My family was really good. The relationships with my families were strong, but basically still I think I was mainly concentrating on things that were outside of really sharing deep feelings with one another. There was love in the family, but I really wasn't really interested in sharing love and relationships. I grew up in what you would say would be a Christian family. I went to church every Sunday morning, sometimes on Wednesday night, vacation Bible schools. And on the outside, it looked like I was a real fine child. But I think I was really troubled inside, and I think that's where the real problem was with me. How I felt about myself, my security in life, my assurance of myself was really based on how well I did in the sports.
So he kind of was like the star pupil of, like, he did everything
That's
that,
weird.
you know, like the classic American kid in that time would have been
That's wild.
praised for. Yeah, right?
I did not expect that.
Yeah, I know.
I swear, I know nothing about this man before the killings, and I did not expect that.
Well, so I'll tell you, I think Tex Watson was influenced to become a killer. I don't think he's a natural killer.
Yeah.
Truly. Because there are a lot of theories out there that people can be brainwashed enough to do anything. I mean, like, look at every suicide cult ever.
Yeah.
A lot of those people don't typically, you know, have suicidal ideations. They can, but not all of them do.
Yeah.
But they can be brainwashed enough into finding rationale behind it. So I think that's kind of Tex's situation, but on a killing front.
Sure.
But yeah, so he was raised in a Methodist family who instilled in him the belief that the best path to achieving the American dream was to lay in hard work, education, and upholding a moral compass.
Wow.
Which did not happen. Boy, were they shocked, I'm sure.
I am sure they were.
So he attended local churches. He excelled as an honor student and editor of the school newspaper and captain of the football team. So he was like the all-American kid.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know.
This is crazy.
And at one point, he was a youth group leader at his church.
Blowing my mind right
I
now.
know.
This guy?
Yeah.
Tex?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Did you catch that he was a youth group leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. So notably, he also set a record for the high hurdles at Farmersville High School. So super athletic. And in September of 1964, Watson embarked on a new chapter in his life by moving to Denton, Texas.
Oh, Denton. Middle name.
Yep, exactly. To pursue his education at the University of North Texas. And during his time at UNT, he further enriched his life by becoming a member of the esteemed Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity.
Sure.
So he really was living the very standard.
Oh, he's a pikey. He's a pike.
Yeah, he's a pike.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
JT's family don't.
Well, it's just my
typically
dad.
get along with pikes.
Yeah, my dad was Theta Chi and at Florida State, and he was next door neighbors with the Pikes, and they were rivals. They were rival fraternities.
Didn't they kill his chicken?
They killed his chicken. They had a pet chicken at the house, and they
So country.
They killed my dad's pet chicken, and it was a massive, there was a massive fight afterwards.
I believe
Very,
that.
very fun story, my dad.
Yeah.
When he tells it.
So if you are a part of that fraternity, no tea, no shade to you. It's just
It's ritzy.
yeah, it is. It's ritzy.
That's what Dad always said. They always were, blue jacket,
Sports coats kind of
sport
guys.
coats kind of guys. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, Tex is blowing my mind right now because I'm just you keep making him just not a Manson family member.
That's why it's so shocking. That's why
I know.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
almost like he got tired of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like the people who joined the Manson family all had such interesting reasons of getting into
Yeah.
this. And a lot of times it was because they fell into the trap,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh yeah.
And that's also, I think it's important to note all these things because traditionally, not to say somebody who is raised like this couldn't become a serial killer, but there isn't really any evidence that he had a hard childhood or struggled at all. And
Yeah.
he had a very normal early adult life.
Sure.
So it's so wild to think that somebody like this could eventually become one of the most heinous members of one of the most heinous cults of all time.
He is the most heinous member because
Yeah.
he killed the most people
He did.
out of the entire Manson family and was the ringleader of the shit show.
And I think that was because he had leadership skills. Truly. No, I'm so serious. Like, I know that sounds like a joke.
Yeah, you
but-
look at his photo and you're like, dumb hick.
Yeah. Well, I know, and that sounds
Crazy.
like it sounds like a joke, but I think he took on leadership roles because he had leadership background throughout his life. So he kind of fell into it. And I think that's why he ended up killing the most.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that.
Okay.
So how did Tex Watson get involved with the Manson family? So
I don't know. Tell me.
So it's a little bit of a journey. So in Denton, which was a stark contrast from his small town upbringing, It is believed to be the place where Watson's character began to deteriorate as he kind of immersed himself into the party scene. So he was getting a little bit lax. He wasn't studying as much. He was doing all the things that people did in the 60s, you know, classic. But in January 1967, Watson was low on funds, so he ended up starting a new journey as a baggage handler at Braniff International.
Okay.
And so because he worked for this airline company, he got free airline tickets as a perk of his job. So he ended up deciding to take a trip to Los Angeles. And he was planning on meeting one of his fraternity brothers there.
Okay.
So when he got there, he was enamored with California, which is not surprising because, you know, especially back then without the internet, going to other states really far away that you are very different culturally than your state, it's kind of shell-shocking.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he loved it. And so because he loved California so much, he had the intention of completing his degree at Cal State Los Angeles. So he was going to transfer, and he ended up going down that academic journey. However, after less than a semester, he enjoyed the allure of a more exciting lifestyle and decided to drop out.
Okay.
Which, unfortunately, you know, sometimes that happens to people when they go out to LA because it can be very drawing to, you know, the party scenes and stuff like that. And why study when you can go have fun and be a ruckus, if you will.
A ruckus. Text the ruckus, y'all.
Yeah. So he was seeking a new adventure, and he ended up landing a job selling wigs, oddly enough. And to his delight, his fraternity buddy, David Neal, joined him in the same endeavor.
Wow.
So they were just selling wigs in LA.
Selling wigs in LA.
But this life period sparked his interest into the vibrant psychedelic and music scene of the late 1960s, which California was kind of the pinnacle of that because you had Haight-Ashbury, which is what really was like the cornerstone of the hippie movement.
Sure.
And if you were any kind of alternative, it was very normal for people to kind of be drawn to the hippie movement of the 60s. But during one of his drives, Watson picked up a hitchhiker, which happened to be Dennis Wilson, a member of the Beach Boys. Because, you know...
The Beach Boys were hitchhiking?
Well, just Dennis Wilson. But
Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys were hitchhiking?
I mean, apparently from what we have learned about Dennis Wilson from, you know, watching the doc and, like, things like that, Dennis Wilson was a party boy. He was not like the other, like... you know, very straight edge sort of Beach Boy persona. He liked to get a little ruckusy.
Whoa, bring the ruckus, Dennis.
But Watson said in a direct quote, "Hitchhikers were pretty common on Sunset, and I pulled over to pick one up. When he told me his name was Dennis Wilson, it didn't mean anything to me. But when he said he was one of the Beach Boys, I was impressed." And so Wilson ended up inviting Watson back to the house he was going to.
Okay.
And so Wilson, who was the Beach Boys drummer, then directed Watson to his home on Sunset Boulevard in the Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles. And then he was introduced to the Manson family, who also was residing there at the time.
That's how it happened.
Yeah. He just picked up a hitchhiker, and then
the Beach Boys have this weird tie-in with the Manson family. What the heck?
Yeah, the Beach Boys have such a strange tie, and Roman Polanski also has a weird tie to a couple different mass killings and serial killings. It's so strange. And we'll talk about Roman Polanski in a little bit, but... So Tex Watson was astounded when he arrived at the place. It was enormous compared to his modest home back in Texas, and he was even more surprised to be invited inside. And so in the living room, Watson encountered a man seated on the floor with his guitar, accompanied by 5 or 6 young women, which was kind of Charles Manson's like whole shtick.
Yes,
he always had girls on his arms, and he was always playing guitar because he wanted to be a musician. And he actually was not bad.
He's pretty good.
He's actually pretty good.
I hate that he's that good.
It makes it eerie.
Is he on Spotify?
He might be. No, he might be.
I'm going to look it up while you're reading. Do it.
He might be. But yeah, if you've never listened to Charles Manson sing, he's kind of shockingly good. But he looked up, Watson later recalled, and the first impression I had was a sense of gentleness and
He sure is.
That's so funny.
He has 37,000 monthly listeners.
I might become one of them.
Shall we follow Charles Manson?
Good God. We're messed up. We're so messy.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Okay, so let me repeat
Sorry.
that because I'm sure you weren't listening. So he looked up, Watson later recalled, and the first impression I had was a sense of gentleness and embracing, accepting, and loving demeanor. And he's describing Charles Manson as
Gotcha.
that. And another man at the house introduced them. This is Charlie Manson, because Charlie is, I guess, what everybody called him. Then they all got stoned. So, yeah.
Why did I immediately think the execution? Like, they got stoned. I'm like, what?
Good Lord.
Wow.
So Tex Watson was initially hooked on the sense of community, not drugs. He really liked the vibe of the environment. So quote from Tex Watson, because he wrote a book, which is super interesting.
Oh, wow. That is interesting.
Because he gave a lot of very specific details through that book. So here I was, accepted in a world I'd never even dreamed about, mellow and at ease. Charlie murmured in the background something about love, finding love, letting yourself love, like every hippie. I suddenly realized that this was what I was looking for, love. Not that my parents and brother and sister hadn't loved me, but somehow now that didn't count. I wanted the kind of love they talked about in the songs. The kind of love that didn't ask you to be anything, didn't judge what you were, didn't set up any rules or regulations.
Who knew Tex Watson was a basic bitch?
He was such a basic bitch. No, like, truly, he loves a cliche.
Yeah, it sounds like love. I was looking for love the entire time.
But, like, I mean, not shocking, though, because he was into the hippie movement. And that was, like, a big part of it is the free love sort of deal. And, you know. So that was a big reason why he was so attracted to the family. But Manson's family, which had no, if you're not familiar with them, first off, go watch a doc on it. But if you're not familiar with the Manson family, none of them are related. He calls them a family because they're kind of a chosen family. But more so, it's a cult. So Manson's family also experimented with LSD and regular acid trips coupled with Charles Manson's peculiar teachings, because he would kind of lecture them. Oh. Like, he would give, like, sermons almost while they're all tripping.
That sounds like a cult leader.
Yeah, that's literally what they do, but regardless, which resulted in odd behavior that gradually drew attention to the group. Okay. So because they were starting to get attention, they had to get out of the public eye. And so they ended up going out to Spahn Ranch.
Spahn Ranch.
2 years ago, the hippie commune led by Charles Manson moved it into this old Wild West film set just outside Los Angeles. And it was here that they were living on the night the alleged murders took place.
They had some bedding back there, and they seem to live pretty comfortably here.
What do they do for money, and what do they eat?
Well, they just as regular as anybody else, and of the whereabouts of the money mostly came from the girls, because the boys didn't work. The girls did most of the money getting.
Were you at any time a member of this group?
Well, I can say that I was, as far as being here and as far as living.
You're not a little. Break with them then after this.
Well, because of their belief, you know, and I have my own, you see.
What specific beliefs are you talking about?
Well, of all the free things, and I believe that the people that work for nothing have nothing, and I believe in working and creating for myself.
And so here's a photo that we'll show y'all of Spahn Ranch.
Spahn Ranch.
So Tex Watson moved in with Charles Manson and his followers at Spahn Ranch, which was a dilapidated former movie set in November 1968.
You can't write this.
It's the wildest story.
Wild.
It's the wildest story. But it was here that Watson acquired his nickname, that George Spahn, the 80-year-old nearly blind owner of the ranch, immediately recognized and embraced Watson's Texas accent. So he called him Tex.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah. But also George Spahn. What about Charles Manson and these hippies made him think, I'm going to let these people live in my movie set? You know?
I have no clue. Maybe he just was like, hey, if you want to live there, you can live there.
I guess it's kind of in that same vein as the other cult that we just recently did where they were living on that dude's property in box trucks.
Ziz. Yeah.
The Zizians. Yeah. Even though the Zizians, which totally different note, the Zizians feel like we were watching that doc and I was like, God, it feels like the Zizians took a little bit from the Manson family and the way that they operated. But nonetheless. So, yeah, that was how he got his name. George Spahn noticed the Texas accent, and so he was now forever going to be called Tex.
Okay.
So, isolated at the ranch, Manson started preaching a very peculiar doctrine. He convinced his followers that he was a divine figure whose every utterance should be heeded.
Oh, boy.
Like every cult leader ever. So Watson lived with the Manson family at Spahn Ranch for 9 months before the crimes happened and became close to Manson and eventually chose to believe Manson's personal philosophies. According to the late prosecuting attorney, Vincent Bugliosi. Or Bugliosi.
Bugliosi, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's the southern...
Vince the Bug.
Well, because it's spelled like bug, but it's Bugliosi.
It's Boog.
So Manson employed various techniques to achieve this. Manson was able to manipulate Watson and others into conspiring to follow Manson's delusion and ignite a massive race war, which was truly what Manson wanted out of all this. He thought that was his purpose.
Yeah.
And that also probably was because he was delusional.
Mm-hmm.
But Manson referred to this race war as Helter Skelter, which was inspired by the Beatles song of the same name. And so he believed that his family could escape to Death Valley, endure the conflict, and emerge as the sole surviving white people destined to inherit the human legacy. Weird, right? Weird philosophy. And so this war was...
Are you telling me that Charles Manson is crazy?
I know. A man that carved a swastika into his forehead is
He's
crazy.
Crazy?
Had no clue. But this war was intended to pave the way for Manson's kingdom. The issue was that the war was taking an excessively long time to erupt.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, which necessitated the Manson family members to instigate it themselves.
Okay.
So in December 1968, Watson left the Manson family for a little bit.
Interesting. I didn't know this.
Yeah. So he started seeking a new life and he moved in with a woman who sold small quantities of marijuana and LSD to his friends. So that's how they met. And Watson became her lover and they settled in Hollywood, which is why I say it's kind of creepy that he's sending this because a lot of this takes place in Hollywood. But nonetheless, so...
And for everyone listening, it's a Hollywood postcard. It has the Hollywood sign on it.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. So he settled in Hollywood for a few months and intensifying their illegal activities. However, Watson's restless nature soon led him to rejoin the Manson family because I think he missed the community of it all. And so Tex Watson recounted the events leading up to the murders in an interview. His direct quote was, "After about 2 weeks of taking these drugs and becoming just void of conscience, Manson said, 'Hey, I want you to go out and kill these people.' To go up to this place and kill everyone who is there. He gave us the orders, the direction. He told the girls to write something witchy on the walls. Here I was, a naive Texas boy without a conscience, and thinking that the world was going to come to an end tomorrow."
Wow.
And so, following Manson's orders to find money for Helter Skelter, Watson devised a plan to steal money from his lover's friend, Bernard Crow. And so... Crow, aware of the situation, called the Manson ranch and spoke to Manson, threatening to kill everyone on the ranch if he didn't receive his money back. Now, I do think it's important to note that Bernard Crow was a black man, and I do want to say that...
He's the Black Panther?
Yeah, he's involved with the Black Panthers, which Charles Manson loved to use as a scapegoat.
Sure.
They would leave signals in their crimes to point towards the Black Panthers because that was Charles Manson's psychotic mind a way to instigate this race war and speed it up.
Sure.
Because if everybody starts turning on the Black Panthers, we can start moving in that direction, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So in response, Manson ordered Watson to shoot Crow in the stomach using the same pistol that Watson would later use in the Tate murders.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And years later, in the early 1980s, because Crow survived somehow, Watson and Crow found themselves at the California Men's Colony. And after a lengthy conversation about their past and religious beliefs, Crow showed remarkable forgiveness towards Watson for his involvement in the theft and shooting.
That's crazy. What an interesting fact.
I know. Yeah, I would not be so kind.
Yeah.
If somebody shot me in the stomach, I would be so bitter for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, but to each their own. He's a better person than I am, I guess. Yeah. So now the big crime happens, and that's the crime that occurred at Cielo Drive, which oftentimes is referred to as the Tate murders, but it wasn't just Sharon Tate who died in this murder.
I might say that I feel sorry for this man, that he chose this way of life and was choosing. There is no way of turning back. You cannot, or society cannot, and I'm not reading notes, they cannot trust you living next door to them. What mercy, sir, did you show my daughter when she was begging for her life? What mercy did you show my daughter when she says, give me 2 weeks to have my baby, and then you can kill me? What mercy did you show her? In 21 years, I would like to have asked this prisoner why. He did not know my daughter. He had never seen her, but not that I know of. She'd only been home for 2 weeks. How can an individual, without knowing, without any abrasive feelings toward an individual, go in and slice them up, and this mother, 8.5 months pregnant? What about her family? What about her family? And what about the family that she was going to have, sir? Is that not a family? I saw how your feathers ruffled when you was talking about your family. What about my family? When will she come up for parole? When will I come up for parole? Can you tell me that? Are these 7 victims and possibly more going to walk out of their graves when you get paroled? Yes, I feel sorry for anyone that has chosen that way of life. But if you can tell me one person that wants to live next door to you with your children or with their children, I'll eat my hat. You cannot be trusted.
So on August 9th, 1969, as a member of the Manson family, Charles Manson led Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to the home of Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate at 150 Cielo Drive. The home of film director Roman Polanski, who was not present at the time of this. He was, I want to say, in Europe filming, and that's why he wasn't there.
Okay.
But the home just happened to also be the former home of Terry Melcher, a record producer who worked with Manson. So that's why Manson was familiar.
Okay.
Manson only directed these crimes at places he knew.
Where he knew, yeah.
Because he had a personal connection to both of the properties.
Sure.
So Watson claims that Charles Manson instructed him to go to the house and totally destroy, is the direct quote. everyone inside and to do it as gruesome as you can.
That's crazy.
Manson then instructed the women to follow Watson's orders. So that's why I say Watson kind of had his leadership skills utilized by Manson. So Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski's wife, who was about 8.5 months pregnant, was home at 150.
That's crazy. That's a full baby in her stomach.
I know.
Wow.
At Cielo Drive in Benedict Canyon, and she was also with 4 others: the coffee heir Abigail Folger, ex-boyfriend and Hollywood hairstylist Jay Sebring, and Folger's boyfriend and Polanski's Polish friend Wojciech Frykowski, and a visitor who was Stephen Parent. So Watson and the 3 women arrived at Cielo Drive past midnight on August 9th. And Watson scaled a telephone pole near the main gate and severed the phone line to the house.
Oh, I didn't know all that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The group backed their car to the bottom of the hill leading to the estate and ascended back to the house. Concerned that the gate might be electrified or equipped with an alarm, they climbed a brushy embankment to the right of the gate and entered the grounds that way.
Okay.
So, as headlights approached the intruders from within the property, Watson instructed the women to conceal themselves in the bushes. He emerged and commanded the approaching driver, who turned out to be Parent, to halt. Watson raised a .22 caliber revolver, which every freaking killer, I swear, loves to use.
They love the 22s.
They love a .22. So he raised the .22 caliber revolver at Parent, who implored him not to cause harm, asserting that he would remain silent. Instead, Watson lunged at Parent with a knife, inflicting a defensive slash wound on the palm of his hand that severed tendons and tore off his watch.
Wow.
Subsequently, Watson shot Parent 4 times in the chest and abdomen, fatally wounding him in the front seat of his white 1965 AMC Rambler. Watson turned off the ignition and pushed the car away from the gate. Watson cut the screen of a window and instructed Kasabian to keep watch near the gate. He then walked over to Parent's car and waited. He removed the screen, entered through the window, and let Atkins and Krenwinkel in through the front door. He whispered to Atkins and woke Frykowski, who was one of the victims in the home, who was sleeping on the living room couch. Watson kicked Frykowski in the head, and Frykowski asked him who he was and what he was doing there. Watson replied, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business."
In 2 nights, Charles Watson helped to kill 7 innocent people in some of the most brutal murders America has ever witnessed. The murderers stabbed their victims dozens of times in some cases, wrote messages on the walls in their blood, and left the unborn son of actress Sharon Tate to die in utero. 21 years later, as unbelievable as it may seem, the same man who committed those murders is a Christian. The police found him, and he has lived out 21 years of his life sentence in the California men's colony. But God also found him, the God Charles knew about in his youth in Copeville, Texas. He now has a measure of peace, even though he also has the memory of what he did.
I hate what I've done. I hate having to be the person that had committed a crime that's so hideous. I hate that.
Charles's family never gave up on him and continued to write letters encouraging him to give his life to God. He did that in a chapel service in 1975, and since then has come to realize the gravity of what he did.
And so Watson not only wrote that exact quote in the book, but Atkins also attested that he said that, which I'm like, that is so horrifying.
That is horrifying.
That it stuck in both of their minds.
Oh, yeah.
And so on Watson's orders, Atkins and Krenwinkel found the house's other 3 occupants and forced them to the living room. Watson began tying Tate and Sebring together by their necks with a long nylon rope he had brought and slung it over one of the living room ceiling beams. Sebring protested the murderer's rough treatment of the pregnant Tate, so Watson shot him. Folger was briefly taken back to her bedroom for her purse, and she gave the murderer $70. Watson then stabbed Sebring 7 times. Frykowski's hands were bound with a towel, but he managed to free himself and started struggling with Atkins, who stabbed at his legs with a knife. Frykowski fought his way out the front door and onto the porch, But Watson caught up with him, struck him over the head with the gun multiple times, stabbed him repeatedly, and shot him twice.
Watson's doing all of this.
He's literally killed everyone, basically.
He's killed everyone so far.
Yeah. Kasabian, hearing what she quoted as horrifying noises, moved toward the house from her position in the driveway. She informed Atkins that someone was attempting to stop the murders. And inside, Folger managed to escape from Krenwinkel and fled through a bedroom door to the pool area. Krenwinkel pursued her way and caught her on the front lawn, where she stabbed her and tackled her to the ground. Watson then assisted in her death because he had to have a hand in all of them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And her assailants inflicted a total of 28 stab wounds.
This is why everyone's like Manson. And I've always been like Tex, because
Manson just instructed a lot of this.
Manson instructed. And yeah, sure, obviously implicates him substantially. But like, this dude is doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, hardcore.
And so Frykowski struggled to cross the lawn, but Watson continued to stab him, ultimately killing him. Frykowski sustained 51 stab wounds and had also been struck 13 times in the head with the butt of Watson's gun, which bent the barrel and broke off one side of the grip.
Wow.
And the grip was recovered at the scene. In the house, Tate pled for her life, offering herself as a hostage to save her unborn child. However, both Atkins and Watson stabbed Tate 16 times, resulting in her death.
Wow.
The coroner's inquest revealed that Tate was still alive when she was hanged with a nylon rope, although the cause of death was determined as a massive hemorrhage. In contrast, Sebring's murder showed that he was hanged lifelessly. So she died much more painfully. So, according to Watson, Manson had instructed the women to leave a sign of something witchy, so Atkins wrote pig in Tate's blood on the front door. They also, at both murders, wrote something about pigs and things like that to implicate the Black Panthers at the time, to make it seem like they had committed these crimes. But Atkins claimed this act was a copycat of the murder scene of Gary Hinman, which was intended to use the secure release of Manson family member Bobby Beausoleil from jail. Beausoleil had previously written "Political Piggy" in Hinman's blood on a wall after stabbing him to death.
Yeah.
So Manson, though he didn't participate or personally commit any of these murders, wasn't content with the work of his accomplices. He believed they required a lesson in the art of murder. So the next night, the 4 participants in the Cielo Drive killings, including Charles Manson, Leslie Van Houten, and Steve Clem Grogan, committed 2 more murders. So Manson had allegedly instructed them on how to carry out killings. Linda Kasabian drove the group to 3301 Waverly Drive in the Los Feliz area of LA. And the home was located next door to a home where Manson and the family had attended a party the year prior.
Yeah.
And so Manson, Atkins, Grogan, and Kasabian took the car while the others were instructed to hitchhike back to the ranch after the murder.
Okay.
Watson, Krenwinkel, and Van Houten subsequently killed the couple in the early morning hours of August 10th. Manson personally supervised the execution of grocery store executive Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary.
Wow, so he was there,
Yeah.
like watching.
He was watching it because he felt like they didn't do the proper work on the last murder.
I think they did a bang up job.
Well, he wasn't content with it. So the following night, Watson and the 6 others visited the home of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca. Manson and Watson entered the house. As recounted in Watson's book, Will You Die For Me? Manson held the occupants at gunpoint while Watson tied them up before the gang carried out their killings. Watson asserts in his autobiography that Manson originally approached the house alone, then returned to take him inside. Manson pointed out a sleeping man through a window, and they entered through the unsecured back door. Watson claims Manson used a gun to rouse Lino LaBianca from the couch and bound Watson's hands with a leather thong.
Leather thong?
Yeah.
Oh.
They were into some kinky stuff,
I
I guess.
guess.
But Rosemary was brought into the living room from the bedroom, and Watson covered the couple's heads with pillowcases, and he secured with lamp cords. After Manson left, Krenwinkel and Van Houten entered the house. Watson had earlier complained to Manson about the inadequate weapons used in the previous night. So he then sent the women from the kitchen to the bedroom where Rosemary LaBianca had been returned. Watson went to the living room and began stabbing Lino LaBianca with a chrome-plated bayonet.
With the bayonet?
Yeah, because the gun broke.
Yeah.
So he was like, I need something that's not going to break.
That's just crazy, though.
So the first thrust went into his throat. Watson heard a scuffle in the bedroom and went in to find Rosemary LaBianca holding the woman at bay by swinging a lamp tied to her neck. He stabbed her several times with the bayonet and then returned to the living room, resuming his attack on Lino, whom he stabbed a total of 12 times. Afterward, he carved the word war into his abdomen.
Wow.
Watson then returned to the bedroom and discovered Krenwinkel stabbing Rosemary with a knife from the kitchen. Van Houten stabbed her approximately 16 times in the back and the exposed buttocks. At trial, Van Houten claimed that Rosemary LaBianca was already dead during the stabbing. However, evidence showed that many of the 41 stab wounds had, in fact, been inflicted post-mortem. So it was overkill, fully.
Yeah.
Watson then cleaned off the bayonet and showered in their home, while Krenwinkel wrote Rise and Death to Pigs on the walls and Helter Skelter on the refrigerator door.
Leaving something witchy.
All in LaBianca's blood. She also gave Lino LaBianca 14 puncture wounds with an ivory-handled two-tinned carving fork, which she left jutting out of his stomach. She also planted a steak knife in his throat. Meanwhile, Manson drove the other 3 family members who had left Spahn with him that evening to the Venice home of Lebanese actor Saladin Nader. He dropped them off and drove back to Spahn Ranch, leaving them and the LaBianca killers to hitchhike home. So there was supposed to be a second
How are
murder
they
that night.
hitchhiking covered in blood, though?
Well, that's why he took a shower before.
Yeah, but it's clothes.
I don't know. Dude.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. They must have had a plan, but that wasn't as clear.
Sure.
Maybe he put on the victim's clothes, like some of the victim's clothes or whatever. But according to Kasabian, Manson had intended for his followers to murder Nader in his apartment, but Kasabian claims she prevented this by intentionally knocking on the wrong apartment door and waking a stranger. The group abandoned the murder plan and left, but Atkins defecated in the stairwell on their way out.
Why? Just because she was upset, or
just
freaked out about the whole thing?
No, like she did it as like a like FU.
Oh,
to the,
she's just being gross.
Yeah,
got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like that, it's not on accident.
Okay, I thought she was just like her stomach was really upset from doing all these horrible things. Okay.
No. So then the conviction happened.
Ride a horse. Feelings towards everything. I feel no bad. I know no bad. Open them. I'm not against you. Huh?
Are you bitter?
Bitter? No. No.
I have a question. Are you guilty of any murders? Are you guilty of plotting any murders?
I killed a chicken once.
Any human being?
No. No.
You're absolutely innocent of any conspiracy to commit murder, or telling anyone to commit murder, or planning it?
I'll plead guilty to the Indian.
On October 2nd, 1969, Charles Manson's follower, Watson, fled the Spahn Ranch and returned to his native Texas. So, ironically, the race war that Manson had predicted never materialized.
What?
I know, right? However, on November 30th, 1969, he was apprehended in Texas for his involvement in the Tate LaBianca murders. And he was charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder.
Wow.
His parents and siblings were, as you can imagine, left in shock and horror because they had no idea that's what he was doing out in California. Watson and his legal team engaged in a 9-month battle against extradition to California. Upon his arrival in the state, Watson's mental state deteriorated rapidly. He ceased speaking and eating, resulting in a significant weight loss of 55 pounds. Consequently, he regressed into a catatonic state.
Wow.
Yeah. To assess his fitness for trial, because they were trying to go for an insanity plea with him,
Sure.
Watson was admitted to Atascadero State Hospital for a 90-day evaluation period. He remained there until February 1971, when the court determined that he was competent to stand trial. On October 12, 1971, Watson was found guilty of 7 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. And the following week, the same jury swiftly concluded that he was sane. So on October 21st, 1971, Watson was sentenced to death.
Wow.
Now, that's where things get a little tricky. He was subsequently transferred to California's death row on November 17, 1971. However, his execution was averted when the California Supreme Court's People v. Anderson decision invalidated all death sentences imposed in the state prior to 1972.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Watson was found guilty of the heinous murders of 7 individuals, including Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, Stephen Parent, Sharon Tate Polanski, and Jay Sebring, Leno LaBianca, and Rosemary LaBianca.
Heard that.
And this is him posing with his book after it was published.
What?
Right.
How's he posing? He looks like he's in normal clothes. I thought he was in prison.
I'm sure they let him out for something. He might have got furlough or something because he had a book out. So we're going to talk about his incarceration now because you're about to be mind fucked by this.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So according to his prisoner outreach website, Watson converted to Christianity in 1975. He expresses still to this day remorse for the crimes he committed and the lives he ended 50 years ago. His quote is, "I detest what I've done," he once confessed. "I detest being the perpetrator of such heinous crimes. I detest it deeply." Tex Watson attempted to elucidate the reasons behind his participation in the massacre, with his quote being, "Growing up a passive person not communicating my desires, I entered college to please my parents. I looked up to older college men as father figures while fearing failure and angry. The crimes ended up bringing my parents to their knees, causing devastation, hurt, humiliation, and much embarrassment. My siblings were left to hold them up from all the emotional pain, which I so deeply regret." After the parole hearing, one prosecutor framed Tex Watson as an unrepentant mass murderer, stating, "These were some of the most horrific crimes in California history, and we firmly believe that he continues to lack remorse, posing a significant public safety risk." His autobiography, which is narrated by Raymond Chaplin Ray Hoekstra, titled "Will You Die for Me?" was published in 1978. And in 1979, Watson married Kristen Jones Fidge.
Married?
Yeah. And
my God.
And together they established Abounding Love. They established Abounding Love Ministries, incorporated in 1980.
This man's living a full life in prison.
No, he really is, Jay. That's the point. Through conjugal visits, they had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl, but these visits were restricted for life prisoners in October 1996. I told you.
He's having sexual relations in prison?
Now, that happens. I mean, it's
not to people who were on death row and murder 7 people. He doesn't enjoy. He should not enjoy a single thing.
He procreated, and that's a problem.
He should be dead. What?
I knew when you heard this, you were going to lose it. So,
I'm out. It's crazy.
So, mind you, after 24 years of marriage, this woman stayed married to this monster for 24 years. Svedge divorced Watson in 2003 after meeting another man. Good God. Despite the divorce, they maintained a cordial friendship, though.
Oh.
In 1981, Watson was ordained as a minister, and in 2009, he earned a BS in business management from California Coast University in a distance learning institution.
He's a minister?
He's a minister. And he has a Bachelor of Science.
Who murdered all these people is a minister. He
runs a
has
nonprofit.
4 kids after doing it.
Yep.
From prison.
He runs a ministry.
He runs a nonprofit. He's an author.
Yeah. He has a degree.
He has a degree?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No, America. No.
Like, this man jumped around the rules so well. It's unbelievable.
I haven't been this shocked since I heard Dylan Roof got Burger King.
Yeah. I know. I know. So in 1981, well, actually, in August 1982, a group based in Southern California called Citizens for Truth submitted approximately 80,000 petition signatures and several thousand letters opposing Watson's parole. The group received support from Doris Tate, the mother of Sharon Tate. And over the years, the group, along with Doris Tate and her daughters Patricia.
Wait, did I miss that he's eligible for parole or something?
So they had considered. He submitted like 17 parole appeals. And so these people sent in petitions saying this man is not allowed to be out. And so they also got support from Doris Tate and her daughters Patricia and Deborah, and continue to collect petitions, amassing over 2 million signatures.
He shouldn't need a single petition.
I know.
He murdered 7 people in brutal fashion.
Hold on, you want to hear this next one?
No.
This is going to give you a kick.
Does it get worse?
In May 2023, Watson launched the Abounding Love podcast.
Stop it. No. Stop it.
Which features sermons he delivered between 1977 and 1984 in the chapel of the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo, California.
Tex has a podcast?
He has a podcast. I knew that, like, I was flabbergasted.
This is an episode right here.
Yeah.
All of this is an episode right here. This is not, oh my God. Oh my gosh. This is not even me being extra. I am actually this shocked right now.
I knew when I was flabbergasted.
Heinous individual.
Yeah. And he has lived truly a full life, and he's still alive right now. So that's saying something.
Oh my God.
So, in 2012, Watson disputed a request to release recordings made in 1969 with his defense attorney, Bill Boyd. The recordings became part of a bankruptcy proceeding involving the deceased attorney's law firm. Members of the Los Angeles Police Department said they believe the recordings may contain clues about unsolved murder cases involving the Manson family. And Watson asked the presiding judge to allow police to listen to the tapes but not take possession of them. Judge Richard A. Schell ruled Watson had waived attorney-client privilege for the tapes after he allowed the co-author of his 1978 memoir to hear the recordings.
We should do a From One to Wicked episode on the United States justice system.
Honestly, that would be insane.
Ted, all around.
We'd be put on a list.
Sure, we're already on a list.
Probably. Now, the LAPD acquired the tapes, which, did you hear that, though, that he waived his right, basically, of having any say if the police get those tapes when he gave the permission for his co-author to listen to them, to write the memoir. Yeah. So the LAPD acquired the tapes, which allegedly contained Watson confessing to other murders, but reportedly no new information.
So he killed more?
He killed more. But we don't know about it. We don't know who they are yet. So
he could potentially be a serial killer.
He could technically be a serial killer.
What?
Yeah. And in September 2014, Richard Pfeiffer, an attorney for Leslie Van Houten, said that he was considering subpoenaing the tapes to look for information that might help Van Houten in her next parole hearing. Watson's minimum eligible parole date was November 26, 1976. He has been denied parole 18 times since then, including 2 stipulations. He was most recently given a 5-year denial of parole at a board hearing in October 2021. He remains incarcerated at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County, California.
Good. Keep him there.
But yet
And don't let him upload another episode of the freaking Abounding Love podcast. Damn it, California. Come on.
Should we read the postcard before we give the ratings?
Let's read the damn postcard.
Okay. So, like we said at the beginning, this is a postcard that has the Hollywood sign because he's a sick fuck. And it says, I just received the copies you sent on 5/17. Fast thanks. So very much. Yes, it is amazing the power of all you can do at home.
You can do. It's Y-A.
Yeah, you can do. I had a crystal set homemade Cub Scout radio and a skid had great and as a kid had great classes yesterday. Just returned from a good Just
returned from a good Christian 12-step group. Gonna get out of my June up to date to the site this weekend. I have a friend who edits for me. He's talking about the podcast.
Yeah.
He's talking about the podcast. I have corrections to make now. Have you heard of a Bugliosi book, My Prosecutor, on where they are now? Something like that. On us, don't send it. Don't is underlined. I'm not for sure how we get books now. Some crazy new rules. All my love. And it's stamped The Manson Family, May 19th, 2005. Tex Watson. Maybe it's not the podcast. Maybe it's the book.
So, his book was released in the 70s, but Bugliosi's book is a main contributor to how we know so much about Tex Watson.
Okay.
But he's probably hearing that Bugliosi wrote a book on him, and he's pissed off about it.
Okay.
Because he can't get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to, obviously, by this time, you would have seen a photo of the postcard, so you can read it yourself. Sorry, that was a little broken. We purposely don't read these because we want like reactions if they say something.
It's just really tight wording.
Yes, tight wording because he's trying to fit it all in like a little postcard. Yeah. So his handwriting's not bad. It's just
super tight.
It's just a little weird to read, but yeah. Boom.
I've also noticed with these killers, they tend to not have great grammar.
They don't.
So it makes it a little tricky at times.
The author doesn't have great grammar.
Mm-hmm. Well, he had somebody write his story out for him. And apparently he has somebody edit for him as well, which is insane.
Yeah. All right. I am going to share my ratings. Brutality, I'm giving him a 9. He was the ringleader. He killed... He had like Madison said, he had a hand in all of the murders.
Every single one of them.
He led this thing. And I think that he is more...
He killed more than Charles Manson.
Well, Charles Manson didn't kill anybody.
Well, Charles Manson killed people before the Manson family became a thing, but we didn't talk about that.
Oh.
But his was all like drug related. It was like he got into fights with like dealers and stuff, and then he killed them.
Well, anyway, he is more to blame than Manson, in my opinion. So I'm giving him a 9. Everything he obviously loved the blood. He loved the he made it gruesome. He followed the rules. The only reason I'm not giving him a 10 for brutality is I think there's a chance that he would never have killed without Manson.
That's exactly why I gave him a 9 as well.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was saying at the beginning, is he is truly one of those people that I feel like he was coerced into being a killer.
Yeah.
Because if he had never met Manson, he had never moved to California, he would not be killing, I don't think.
He was a live, laugh, love bitch until Manson.
Yeah.
100%. Premeditation. I'm giving him an 8. I mean, he climbed the telephone pole, cut the phone line. These were very premeditated murders. Manson probably gave him the like how the house looks and all of that. So they made a plan. I think it was very, very premeditated. But I deducted 2 points because he's not the one that premeditated it.
Right.
It was Manson. So motive, I'm giving him a 5 because he's just following orders, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that he was like, I just can't wait to kill, I mean, again, I don't know, but I don't think I didn't get
in his mind, he's doing what Manson's telling him because he believes that they're going to go out, that this race war is about to happen any day now, and they have to do this so that they can go live out in Death Valley and live underground like little cicadas or whatever they were planning on doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I completely agree. He is just, he's like the head bitch of the followers, basically.
And then for difficulty of investigation, I'm giving him a 4 because he did get away for a little bit after that, but he got caught. It wasn't very apparent that they tried to hide anything. I don't know. And then body count, I'm giving him a 6. He might have killed more people. We don't know that, so I'm only going off of the 7 people that he did kill. But yeah, I mean, that's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, our ratings are pretty similar. I gave him a 9 as well for brutality because of exactly the same thing. I don't think he would have killed before if it wasn't for Manson. And he was so brainwashed. I mean, he literally had his conscience completely stripped away from him by this man. So it makes sense that he would, be willing to do anything that he says. Premeditation, I gave him a 7 because, again, I think he was just a head bitch. Manson told him everything to do. And the only time he ever made decisions was when it was like quick decisions, like, oh, there's a car coming, girls hide in the bush, I'm going to hold him at gunpoint.
Yeah, I mean, he was the quarterback and Manson was coach.
Exactly. Motive, same thing. I truly think the only reason why he did this is because he truly believed that there is going to be a race war, that he has to do these things so that he can live out in Death Valley like a cicada.
Yep.
And then difficulty of investigation, I gave him a 5 because, I mean, the fact that they were able to get away with it with how much evidence they left behind is shocking.
Yeah, but they didn't have any DNA stuff.
Well, and they would have gotten away longer if it hadn't been for Atkins.
Those meddling kids.
Shut up. So what we didn't include, because we're not talking about the Manson family as a whole, we're talking about Tex. But the reason why really they got caught was because Atkins couldn't keep her mouth shut.
Dang.
Because he had got out of state. He might have gotten away with it for a little bit longer.
For a little bit longer.
For a little bit
They
longer.
would have got him.
Well, yeah, of course, because the Texas Rangers eventually are going to get involved.
Yeah, they don't fuck around.
Yeah, and they don't. You can't get away from the Texas Rangers. And so if Atkins had kept her mouth shut, I think they would have had a couple more years left. But because they did leave some decent ideas behind of framing the Black Panthers, but when they put Helter Skelter on the fridge, I'm like, you're dumb. You're asking. Because they're the only ones that worshipped the Beatles like that, because Manson had a weird thing for the Beatles. And then body count, I gave him a 7 because he killed 7 people.
Oh.
So.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. That's crazy.
That was wild, isn't it?
He has a podcast like us.
I knew you were literally just going to lose your mind.
I don't like that. I don't like that he got to live what seemingly looks like a full life in prison.
He's still alive. Like, God. He is still living his life right now.
Why do we, I say this every episode, why do we have the death penalty if we're not going to use it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just
true. I mean, on people like that.
Right.
It's awful.
Yeah,
but
it's
whatever.
Just insane. All of it's crazy. Yeah, if y'all want us to do like another one of the whole Manson family, I feel like we covered a lot of.
He's a 6.4.
Yeah, he's a 6.4.
we got so stuck. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm still so shocked.
I know.
But yeah, the 6.4. And then if go ahead and leave your rating 1 out of 10 from 1 to Wicked in the comments. We'll add it in.
Yeah. If y'all want to hear more on the Manson family, like where we rate the whole Manson family as a whole, because the women also had interesting points of their involvement. We just felt that Tex Watson felt like a good representative of the Manson family to rank. So, and we had a postcard from him, which is interesting.
In his handwriting, he held it and touched it.
Yeah, and I don't believe for a second that man's actually remorseful. I think he is he is so manipulative in the fact that he has all these things happening in his life, even though he's in prison. I think he only says that he's sorry so that he hopes that he'll get parole.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, look, he's reformed.
I agree.
He was a member of a cult, so he's reformed now. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Nah.
You don't just come back from that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, nonetheless. But hopefully y'all enjoyed today's episode. And like JT said, leave down below what you would rank Tex Watson. And you can break it down the same way we did. Or if you want to just leave your overall ranking, you're welcome to do that as well. But with that, though, y'all, my name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And don't forget, next time you're walking down the sidewalk, you might just be passing a perfect 10.